Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Psychic Cellar Podcast. I'm Rachel, and as you can see on the screen right now, we have our latest or our first major event. It's going to be Sunday, April 7th at 2024, from 12 to 5 p.m., and it's going to be in 1749 South Raccoon Road in Austintown/Youngstown. It's like you blink, you're in Youngstown, you blink, you're in Canfield, you blink, you're in wherever gray zone in Mahoning County you choose to be. So, please check out the website that is on the bottom. And yeah, let's get down to it, shall we? Okay. So, hide that. Hi, everybody. So, as I said, I am Rachel, and I am a part of, this is my office, I'm a part of the Psychic Cellar. It is a new curated pop-up brand for very curated, how do I say, spiritual events, and also podcast, and soon to be announced major things at play here. And for the podcast, I'd like to have on guests that are professionals in the field of spirituality, fringe concepts, the proverbial rabbit holes, okay? And also in different topics such as religion and anything you might have a question about, or even symbolism, or about like different divination techniques, you name it. This is just here for whoever is interested in spirituality, period. Okay, so it is all inclusive, completely diverse. Ask away, message me. I'm going to have on today's show somebody who is a good friend of mine named Joey Madia, who has been in the field for I don't know, maybe 15-20 years as a paranormal researcher, along with his wife Tanya, who I have personally worked alongside. And he has so many different books that he has written, so many collaborations that he has been a part of, and he has all different kinds of online YouTube channels that he is a part of. And so we're going to be talking about that, but centering on all things the moon today, La Bella Luna, okay? And that being said, you know that we do have a huge solar eclipse coming up on Monday, April 8th. So, let's get Joey in here, shall we? Let me come down here.
Good afternoon.
And there's Joey.
Exciting to hear about your new endeavor. Congratulations. I'm glad to,
thank you,
to be a part
Joey.
of it here. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm wearing my moon shirt today.
Very cool.
Hello.
I wish
We're
I
going
had
to talk
one.
about La Bella Luna, right?
Right.
Yes, Moonstruck is one of my favorite all-time movies, I must say.
Snap out of it.
Yeah. But, so everybody, this is my friend Joey. And
Hello, everybody.
as I said, he has been doing what he's doing. I mean, I asked a while back for a bio or a CV from him, and when it just kept printing out on my printer, I was like, oh my goodness. Okay.
I should have warned you. Sorry.
So talk a little bit about yourself. Like, what would you say that your key interests are? Like, what got you into the field that you're into?
Yeah, so it's been an interesting journey. You were right. I've been doing paranormal investigation for 15 years since I became an experiencer. Mm-hmm. So people often ask,
and just so you can kind of describe to some people who might not be familiar with what the term experiencer is.
Sure.
Could you please describe that a little bit?
Well, to me, and those of us who say we're experiencers, rather than just reading about it or interviewing people about it, or even going out into the field and taking readings and things like that, I have encountered ghosts, and I've encountered spirits. I've encountered a variety of dark entities, and beautiful entities that, are they angelic? Are they otherworldly? And Tanya and I had in 2009 a 2.5 hour missing time abduction experience, which we had the experience in 2009. So that's when I really got into this, because we knew that something happened, but it wasn't until 10 years later that we were hypnotically regressed and found out what happened during that 2.5 hours. Or we knew what happened at the start of it. We knew what to end. But people often ask me, when did I get interested in this? And I was born into it because I was born Roman Catholic, Sicilian.
Oh, yeah.
So you have miracles, you have saints, you have, Jesus, dying and rising from the dead, and the transmogrification of the bread and the wine and all that. So I've never not known mystical things or, supernatural, paranormal. Although on my podcast, Into the Outer Realms, I say where the paranormal and the supernatural are the normal and the natural, because they've just been part of my life. And so Tanya and I got together. It was 26 years ago. And Tanya, as you know, is a very skilled, very, I don't want to say powerful, but the energy of her psychic mediumship. Like any place she goes, the ghosts and spirits go, oh, Tanya's here. So, she's like a psychic battery, as Rosemary Ellen Guiley, our longtime mentor, used to call her psychic battery. And our daughter, who's 24, 25 right now, Joe has, like many families, has this as well. And Tanya's grandmother did, and her mom did a tiny, tiny bit, but her mom was so Christian that she, couldn't reconcile them. And then, we had that experience. And I remember saying to Tanya, well, if we're being investigated, I have to investigate what's investigating us. And my larger background is in storytelling. And I really found that it applies so well. I mean, that's kind of my thing as a paranormal investigator. I can read the history, do the research, interview folks, do a field investigation, and look for the gaps, the inconsistencies, the symmetries in the story. Not that I'm out to debunk anything. I'm not one of those guys. I have to say, Rachel, and I guess I'm kind of taking a page from John Keel, who wrote the Mothman Prophecies. He said, I'm no longer interested if these things exist. I know they exist. I want to understand the mechanisms behind them. So really, for the past 5, 6, 7 years, I've been looking for parallels, patterns, to try to make sense. And honestly, I don't know if we'll ever know, and I'm okay with that. It's not like I must know before I die. But I do think the quest is cool.
If I may,
please.
I may kind of cut in here and just I often tell people who I had a client just recently, just really exasperated and like, but why can't I see things? And why can't I? Blah, blah. And I had to explain, it's because things are not that black and white. I mean, I started throwing out Shakespeare, about the stage. I can't even remember the whole quote at the moment because I was like, oh my goodness, right? And I totally get what you're saying about the experience, but I also personally find kind of a bit of a relief and release in always going back to Plato. And I know there's a bunch of conjecture about whether or not Plato actually said this, but it goes to that old adage of the only thing we will ever truly know is that we'll never really know.
Oh yeah.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah, Socrates, the sum total of my knowledge is that I know nothing. And I'm cool with that. Like, I'm not keeping score. It was interesting what your client said, because people will say to me, oh, you're an experiencer. That's like, I had a guest on my show last Thursday night who since the 1990s has been channeling this celestial being. She's wrote tons of books. She's everywhere. She's very well known. And she said, I'm kind of envious that you had this abduction experience. So it's odd. Like, even though we have our things, we kind of want more things, but I'm kind of happy. I actually think that because I was with Tanya, I was brought along because I don't fit the typical patterns of abduction where it's lifelong. At least if it is, I don't remember it. But when you listen to the regression tape, I'm saying the regressor is saying, what are these beings saying to you? Because they were trying to get me to invest in something that looked like a Hollywood set. Like I wasn't buying it. I was being very resistive. And and you could hear me on the tape. I go, not a good candidate, not a good candidate. And the regressor says, is Tanya a good candidate? I go, oh yeah, of course, Tanya's a great candidate. So
poor
there's
Tanya. Throw her under the bus while you're under, Joey.
Yeah, no, it's all good love because she's too much of a good candidate. I mean, Tanya's the one who wakes up with bruises and sometimes has implants and.
Me too. She and I have talked about so many of the parallels between the two of us. So when you are talking about abductions, just to clarify, everybody, you would be talking about what would most popularly be termed as aliens, right? Like space beings. But I mean, there are all kinds of interdimensional. We could talk about all of that, right? I mean, there are so many different theories on what that really is, and even what the true abduction is. It seems to be different types, according, to me, there seems to be absolutely 100% different types of abduction. I'm stammering, but whether it be interdimensional, like psychically, that kind of abduction, or whether it be a physical abduction, it's like across the spectrum. It really, really does seem to be.
Yeah.
And so. But please, you also have a YouTube channel and called Into the Outer Realms, right?
Well, the YouTube channel is called Every Day's a Story.
Okay.
Every Day is a Story. Because my paranormal work comes under my umbrella of storytelling.
Okay.
Yeah. So, because... Go ahead.
You do have recordings with guests on under the
Into the Outer Realms.
Right?
Yeah, it's all there. And if you're only interested in, you're not interested in the writing, there's a channel. I think they call it the sub channels or whatever for spiritual or for paranormal or for the more fringe kind of stuff, which we call the sinister mysteries. So I do the political and all that. Because once you start pulling threads and looking for answers, the government knows about a lot of these things.
Oh, they really do.
A lot of them, from ufology to worshiping dark entities to the whole, to the whole thing. So you can't help, but I do try to categorize them so people can go and only see the thing they want. I can't just make a narrow brand, which some people say that to me. They've said it all my life. Why don't you just pick one thing and do it? But no, this journey for me, it's all the pieces and so Every Day is a Story, but Into the Outer Realms they can find on numerous platforms.
Okay. So talking about different types of abductions and experience, being an experiencer, I'm an experiencer myself. I chuckled just thinking about all the things we talk about here because we both like to talk, everybody. We both have so much to say. We really, really do. But we're going to talk about the moon now. So we have a huge eclipse, right? A lot of people in the spiritual community, like if you go to social media, they're going cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs with all the theories here. And I'm just sitting back going, whoa, rein it in, people, rein it in. Let's focus, okay? Let's focus. But, I mean, we also have the eclipse is going to be on Monday, April 8th. And we're going to be seeing it here in Ohio, which, you know, that's a big deal, right? Because that doesn't really happen for us very often. And that being said, we also have, what is it, a comet or an asteroid or something? Like, they can't really make up their mind, called the Devil's Comet or the Devil's Asteroid. That's gonna fly by at the same time, and all these people are talking about how the moon is rusting and the biblical quotes that go along with the moon turning red, and I'm just like, yeah, literally. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on all the chaos surrounding the moon right now?
Well, it's always though, right? So our very word lunacy, right?
Yeah, I know.
Lunatic comes from the moon. And so I was very fortunate to have a theater company who was the house theater company for Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, or the Weston Hospital in Weston, West Virginia. A big, second largest hand-cut stone building in the world after the Kremlin. It's one of these big, like, Civil War era. It's been on TV and all that. And of course is a highly, highly active place full of ghosts and spirits and residual haunting. So again, to educate your audience, a spirit to Tanya and I, although a lot of our colleagues agree, a spirit comes back and forth between the non-corporeal world and the corporeal world, and so it might be grandma coming to deliver a message about photos in a tin box that she feels like you need, or ghosts seem to have attachments here, whether they're addictions, unfinished business, a message they have to send, some kind of vengeance they're trying to see done, book squared. And then residual hauntings are like an emotional, energetic imprint. So you can't communicate with them. They never change. And a vast amount, like when people stay at bed and breakfasts or this and that, a vast amount of that seems like residual haunting. The owner of the building, of course, is going to be very attached to that building that he built. And so as he walked the rounds, and you could smell cigar smoke. So it's not just a visual, but you're not going to communicate with it. You don't need to try to get rid of it. You don't need to try to negotiate with it. It's just value added. And it had all of these things. The Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. But I knew people from working there for so many years, or working with them, who said, oh yeah, I remember being a kid and my dad picking me up and I would wait in the car and read comic books, or my aunt worked there. The point of all of this is on full moons, people went crazy.
Yes.
So, there's some branches of psychology and the neurosciences that go, no, there's no correlation. But if you talk to EMTs, you talk to hospital
ER, room nurses. Yep.
So I'm not surprised, especially in our world right now where people don't know what to believe. AI and this and that and the other. The moon is really the perfect thing. Was it here or was it parked here? Is it hollow? Rusting? Yeah, because there are massive amounts of these iron-rich metals in the moon, like a giant slabs of them. We have bombed that thing. We went 40 years ago and really haven't gone back. The circumstances under which we went were very weird. Because
that's a whole rabbit hole there.
Yeah, I mean, all of it is, but it's this big, beautiful. I mean, no matter what we're doing, no matter how old we are, and Tanya and I have seen amazing things as you have. When there's a full moon or a quarter moon, or when that moon is there, or in the morning when you get up and you can still see the moon, you stop what you're doing. I mean, it has a literal pull. And you think about our forebears who didn't have all this clutter, light clutter and TV clutter, electronic clutter. It was just there, so big in the sky, and it left and it came back and it moved and it had different phases. Yeah, I'm not surprised that it's kind of coalescing with the insanity of modern society, and it's manifesting with theories. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, the whole idea of, I mean, I remember I was born in 72. So, of course, I had the, in very, very rural Ohio, I must also throw in there, okay? So, I was brought up with, the moon was a part of the earth. And then
Okay.
probably at around age 9, age 10, I'm like, wait, what? I'm like, wait a minute. And just always questioning things because that's always been my background, to the probable annoyance of my mom. Hi, Mom. But sorry. But it's just, I mean, to find out also that really what is rusting on the moon right now is actually hematite, and the spiritual connection with the iron ore of hematite, or the hematoid structure of the moon, is for protection, and that thing is always around, whether we
Yeah.
can see it or not. So, I mean, how many people wear hematite when they're going on paranormal, like, expeditions or
Yeah.
investigations or whatever, or if they're going to go in to cleanse a house? That is one of the go-to stones. And here's the moon, and that is what is rusting on it. So, I often, lately I've been thinking, okay. So there's also been proven that there is actual, H2O water-based ice molecules on the moon. Not a lot, but it's there.
Yeah.
So of course, after a while, you introduce water to iron, it's going to start doing what it's going to do, right?
Yeah.
But everybody in the conspiracy theorists, or the fringe theorists, I probably should say, thank you for introducing that
Yeah, that's what I say.
yeah.
I say they're fringe theories, because there's really nothing wrong with conspiracy or theory.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just questioning.
Yeah.
It's just a line of
Well,
questioning.
that's the problem, right?
Yeah.
That's where you get into trouble, by asking
That's a
questions.
whole other show, Joey. That's a whole other show. Okay.
That's every show.
But I ever since, I mean, I also have noticed over like the course of the past 5 years that there is such an increased interest in the moon. And it's like, whoa, what is going on? And you look back and there always seems to be these waves of like interest, like every 15, 20 years. It'll go up a peak, and then it'll go back down, and another one will pick up where that left off. And it seems to kind of happen when not just people are trying to find answers, but when there is a lot of smokescreen effect stuff that's going on politically, etc., across the globe. And so I think that the whole thing with the moon, and I've had some clients reach out to me saying, you better stay home. I hope you're not doing anything on that eclipse race because I know you're in Ohio. And I'm like, okay, listen, everybody. Please. It's going to be okay. But one of the most recent things that I was told by a client was that, and you might know about this, Joey, I'm not sure. I mean, because it just came out of the blue like 2 nights ago. I was contacted, and they said that there was another eclipse that went, like we'll say, from Washington State down to Florida. Like that was the path, that line, okay, across the U.S., right? And so then this one is going to say, if we're looking at the U.S., the line is going to be from the way northeast all the way down to the very, very southwest. And where those two lines intersect, X marks the spot, is going to happen in a little tiny city that just so happens to be, the city is called a name that is also a major heavy key player that shows up in the excuse me for saying this, I don't want to cause any chaos here, but the Bible as a biblical city. And so my client was reaching out to me, and I'm like, whoa, okay, first breathe, let's center, let's think about all this, right? And she couldn't even remember where she had heard this from. So I thought, this is going to be a good topic for me to bring up with Joey. So have you heard of anybody bringing any of that up?
Are you talking about the small town or city that had the spill right after the show about a spill in that town? No, it's a different
I
town.
think the name of the city starts with an N. And it does sound like a very ancient city name, and I neglected to write it down because I was trying to be, in all honesty, really, really be there for my client because she was driven to the edge.
Well,
yeah. So this might be something that you would focus on for maybe one of your shows coming up, even, or talk about.
Possibly, yeah. If you recall the name of the city, let me know. But I think just coming back to a sort of meta perspective, a big perspective, not meta gonna make us all live in the AI
meta
world.
Versus macro.
Yeah, macro. Yeah, to go from a macro kind of standpoint. I cannot tell you how many reels I get from TikTok and Instagram a day. So I have to tell people, I love you, but you're limited to like 3 cents a day. And it's out of context. There's no date or time stamp. It's a little snippet. So people are being fed all of this stuff. And I think that's what's going on. So I can't discount that out of hand. I obviously don't know everything. But, I mean, there are also these videos of this crazy howling coming out of Middle East cities that people think are the Nephilim getting ready to rise up. And when you listen to this stuff out of context, it sounds legit. But you don't know what's been done to the tape. You don't know when it was. Then you're watching people who are speaking Arabic languages, and there's a translation coming up. But you don't know if the translation. So this is a really difficult, really interesting time to track all of this. None of this that you've told me has come onto my radar. Which is neither here nor there. No, it's neither here nor there because we all have our own. We have our resources that we go to.
Right.
We have our people that we're connected with.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much in a world of 8 billion people. There's a lot of foci. So I'm listening, and I'm gonna look into some of this stuff. I think it's going to be a big, beautiful spiritual event. It's so terrific that it happens the day after, you're having a psychic event, a Psychic Cellar event.
Now, I will say, Joey, I did not plan it that way.
Oh, okay. But it's nice, no?
I did not.
It's nice, though, so I hope on that day people will be... Tanya and I are going to go out. She has the special glasses or whatever because we got to see it in North Carolina last time. Talk about a coincidence. Last 2 times it's happened, we've been in, great positions.
Wow.
I know people who are taking the day off of work, who are closing their office because it's just going to be a major event. So I think that we need these very positive things. Now, of course, I'm going to eat a ton of crow if something really bad happens that day.
It's okay. So will I.
But my feeling is enjoy it. It's a beautiful celestial event. The energy of it is wonderful and wild and tells us that with all our technology and all our supposed civilization, we are going to be in darkness in the middle of the day because that's the nature of the cosmos. And I love it. And I have now, will people try to take advantage of that? Will they try to build fear? We are in a really crazy, and always to bring it back to the moon, we're in a crazy time. But in January of 2023, Bill Nelson, the chief administrator of NASA, said China is planning 4 missions to the moon, and they may actually claim parts of the moon. So the idea that countries on Earth, this annoys me so much. I'm just going to say, I try not to say this, but I'm going to say it.
Right on ahead.
The idea of humans going out to Mars and into really, you know what, Rachel? It offends me. It offends me.
Me too.
It's like you screwed up this place, you don't get to go screw up another place. You have to,
No.
that's my Sicilian, like, very conservative
Well, that
upbringing.
is, then that must. I'm not Sicilian, Joey, so I think it's probably just a very basic, very, very open-minded, spiritually based ideology. Because, well, I also have Lenape First Nation in me as well. But I'm like, we were given this planet. You don't look a gift horse in the mouth. Who gives us the right to try to lay claim to anything out there?
Right.
Anything. I mean, it was always a bizarre concept to me when people would, buy a star and have it named after someone for their birthday. I'm like, wait, what?
I know.
When I was really little, I mean, this whole concept has been going on for years of where, we're just going to go out there and we're going to stake our claim on this, 100 acres of the moon. Yeah, it's ours. It's like, this isn't the wild, wild west. This is not the new frontier.
Right.
This is, we can't escape our history. We can't. The history is there. You could try to erase the memory of it. You could, by like changing what people can go read or et cetera, and so that gradually people will almost like graduate out of the system by becoming too old, and then that generation dying off. So then that memory, that basic information is like, wait, was that real? And then it will probably become a fringe concept or a fringe idea in the future.
Not if I have anything to do with it. But I think the ground, the rocks, the air have memory, and they have a memory of blood.
Mm-hmm.
The conquering, and look at these wars we're in the 21st century, for God's sake, and these wars are they're horrific. But anyway, I don't want to stray.
Joey, what you were talking about when you said that everything has almost a consciousness or a memory. I mean, that goes down to the ideology that everything is energy. Everything is energy, and energy cannot be destroyed, and that is a scientifically proven thing. It just merely changes form. So even the most solid of items, like this little iPad pen, right? I mean, it's moving. Even though I'm holding it, the atoms of it are moving.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting concept that kind of shakes some people up, but the idea that everything has consciousness, I believe, falls under the spirituality umbrella of animism.
Yeah.
So just so you know that you might want to look into animism, because that is something that I have found that a lot of people are showing interest in as well, like with whatever spirituality, trying to incorporate that into whatever spirituality that they grew up with.
Yeah.
But getting back to this moon.
Yeah, the
like
moon.
When I read palms, right? There is this area on the palm that is called the Mount of Luna, aka the Mount of Selene, right? Which is the moon. Now that is this big fleshy area right there, like the heel of the palm, right? Now that is the center for everything like intuition, empathy, psychic ability, all the watery emotion stuff. One huge ball of wax. And I always find it interesting that it was called that because that's where the emotions are found in palmistry. Well, the type of palmistry that I use, which is Aristotelian and Vedic, and it has to do with the moon. But yet, Western culture and Western medicine, and even in the mental health field, they will say when the volume's turned off and they're in private, they'll be like, "Oh, it's gonna be crazy. It's gonna be a full moon tonight." But yet, when they get with their peers, they're like, okay, so yeah, we're having a bad night, So it's like, come fly, just admit it. I mean, what does the moon actually physically have influence over here on Earth? The tides, water, So why would it not have control over humans in some aspect? Because we are mostly what? Water.
Yeah, water, absolutely.
Hmm.
Absolutely. And I think it was, placed here. Um that's what I've come to believe. I don't have the details on that. I'm not sure who did it. Zachariah Sitchin is a good start to read his stuff, the Anunnaki, all of that kind of thing. What's very, very interesting is the Greeks, the Romans, and even before them talked about a time before the moon was here.
Hmm.
Like we say, oh, remember that time before cable television? Well, in their writings, they would say, remember that time before the moon was here, or there was a time before the moon was here. That doesn't feel, if you put on your Ancient Aliens hat or your weird Ancient Aliens hairdo, right? You go, so what exactly does that mean? Well, it doesn't feel like a metaphor. As a guy who traffics in language for a living, that doesn't feel like a metaphor. That's not, theoretically speaking or metaphorically speaking, before the moon was here. No, they're simply saying there was a time before the moon was here. So that's interesting.
Hmm.
And then what it's made of, and when the capsule or the lander, and it reverberated, and it reverberated for hours.
Pinged. Yeah.
A solid object does not ping. It does not reverberate like a bell.
No.
And weird crap happens. So you were talking about 15-year intervals. So if you subtract 15 from 2024, of course you get 2009. 2009, NASA bombed the moon looking for water. That was a weird ass thing where people went, wait, they're bombing the moon? This is very bizarre. What people don't know is that Chinese missions to the moon had proven the existence of water years before that.
Mm-hmm.
So it begs the question, why are we detonating nukes on the moon? Which could open to another topic area if you want.
Oh, yeah.
If you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, I do.
And the evidence for there being structures, beings, a history on the moon, once you start digging into this stuff, it's all over.
Oh, I know.
Every mission, Mercury, Gemini, Apollo, every mission they had some kind of weird anomalous thing. Covering windows with things to block things out, or photos. NASA has done such a good sinister job of scrubbing photos. It's hard to find. It's hard to find the original photos. You can find them. You really have to dig. But guys like Gordon Cooper, he was so vocal, because Gordon Cooper, before he became an astronaut, when he was in the Air Force, he watched a flying saucer land on a tarmac of an Air Force base out on the West Coast. So he was a believer before he ever got in a capsule. Buzz Aldrin, depending on the day of the week or the time of day, goes back and forth.
Yeah.
Buzz will say things like, there's monoliths on the moon and there's monoliths on Mars. And he'll say, well, did we go to the moon? Did we go to the moon? But then he famously punched some guy in the mouth in front of a hotel for asking. So it depends on who's trying to get to Buzz and what the stakes are every week. But I think I'm going to plug a friend of mine, if that's okay. This is a brilliant book.
Yeah.
The Moon's Galactic History by Constance Victoria Briggs. And she also has a moon encyclopedia.
Oh.
And it's just catalogs of testimony. And, Russian ham operators who overheard this conversation about, these guys were talking about space music and languages they didn't understand and flybys. And by the time of the later Apollo missions, they were going, oh, yeah, we're being watched. Like they knew because they were told.
Yeah.
And, Rachel, have you ever seen the two press conferences for the Apollo astronauts who actually landed on the moon? The guys who got into that ship are not the guys who came back, right?
No.
Your audience should check that out. You can find it on the internet. That second press conference.
100%, everybody. 100%. And again, it's not to create any kind of feeling of instability in what your beliefs might be. It's just a matter of noticing what is out there and what perhaps might be, unfortunately, kind of being tinkered with just a smidge in order to control the content of our beliefs and where we find comfort, etc., which is a really raw topic with me, I gotta admit, Joey. And we talked a little bit about it before we started. Now, just like with the dark side of the moon, can you talk a little bit about? They found, I'm not sure how many years ago it was when they actually did, but they just kind of let it go out a little bit here, a little bit there, which is what they do. Test the waters, test the waters, see what's going to happen before they fully just like disclose something, right?
Yeah.
And they found this, I think it was a 1 mile long, really, really ancient ship, supposedly on the dark side of the moon, with what appeared to be a female, we will say, in air quotes, alien, for lack of a better word, in my brain at the moment, that had, attachments and different apertures on her or their face, right?
Right.
I'm like, why aren't we talking about that more? Why aren't we discussing that more?
Well, there's a reason, and then I'll tell you why I personally believe that stuff is true. That those things are there and all of that. Rand Corporation, very insidious political think tank. People like Robert Bigelow, and you know the reasons why I'm not shy about calling out Robert Bigelow. These people push this narrative that if society found out that there truly were interdimensionals or ETs or EBs or whatever you want to call them, these other off-world or parallel dimension, again, however you see it, and it's probably both, that society would fall apart, religion would collapse and all of that. It's all BS. The UN has an ambassador to space. The Vatican has been studying this stuff and knows a great deal. It's just information control. It's nonsense.
Controlling the narrative.
Yeah, and that's why we don't talk about it. They would much rather make good people look insane. And there's a huge history of that in ufology, in moon studies. I will tell you, though, why I think. Because in the 1980s, there was a man named Ingo Swann. Who was he was an artist. He was a gay artist from New York. He was a very flamboyant guy. But he also had this great gift.
Wasn't he also involved somewhere with the remote viewing?
Yeah, that's what I'm getting to. Yeah. Yeah, so he gets recruited by the Stanford Research Institute. So this is Hal Puthoff. This is Russell Targ. Very, very heavy hitters to this day. Russell Targ became very interested in spirituality towards the end of his life. Hal Puthoff is still very tight with all the major ufology players and Bigelow and all that. So they recruit Ingo Swann because they find out that he can do this remote viewing. Well, he did a book called Penetration, and for a while you couldn't get it, but now you can get it again, which is great. And Penetration was one of these fulcrum moments for me where I called the guy who sent me the book and I said, should I believe this book? Because if I believe this book, this was in maybe 2011, I said, this will change everything for me, everything. And that was the moment, Rachel, when this guy who I deeply respect said, yes, it's true. And I've since talked to somebody who was friends with Ingo Swann, and it was all true. Ingo Swann tells this story that he was picked up in New York City. He was brought to Washington, D.C. He then had a hood put over his head, and he was taken to an undisclosed location. Now, how remote viewing works is you get coordinates. That's all you get. They're very, very careful about analytic overlay and all this kind of stuff. You get coordinates. He says, okay. He starts doing his thing. He goes, this is the moon. And they all just say, tell us what you see. He goes, okay, well, this is the moon. It's the dark side of the moon. He says, there are structures. Like, guys, like what? They're like, just tell us what you see. He goes, there are beings. Just tell us what you see. Those beings are looking at me. Shut it down. Because in remote viewing, it's supposed to be a one-way. It's not supposed to be a two-way. That is heavy, heavy, heavy. Because that breaks. Not only did this guy who was extremely powerful in a program that they found airplanes, they found what's her name, who was with the Patty Hearst. I mean, they found these guys were very, very powerful, and gals. Even though the military eventually said, "Oh, there was nothing to see here," just like, you know, when Professor Trump, Donald's uncle, took 40 boxes of Tesla's stuff out of his hotel and said, "Oh, nothing to see here. There's nothing of value. It's all gibberish." They shut it down because it broke every rule. That I was all in at that point. I was like, okay. So you and I were talking about, you know, us colonizing, or humanity trying to colonize. Yeah. I know some people who I trust who are in contact with the Syrians and other people like that, the Pleiadians, so on and so forth. And they say it is not going to be allowed. It is not going to be allowed unless humanity fixes its crap. Because here's what I say, Rachel. When the atomic bomb went up, and everybody's talking about that now because of, you know, Oppenheimer was such a blockbuster. Right. When the atomic bomb went up, it was like a big signal. The monkeys have guns. And the entire universe, you know, people usually ask me, like, do you think it was a beacon, or do you think a hole was torn in the fabric of space? I think probably both. And that became very serious. How else do we explain nuclear submarines, nuclear bases being shut down, nukes being activated and then disabled? They're clearly saying to us, we are not going to let you do anything that we don't want you to do, because the stake is the universe, and humanity on this little blue and green ball does not get to decide the fate of the universe. So I glean a weird kind of hope from that. I really do. I'm like, okay, they have our back, and we're good. Yeah. You know, and I'm foolish enough to think when I say humanity and society that I'm not a part. Obviously, I'm a part. But, you know, I try to keep my footprint low, and I try to stay humble. And that's all we can do. The people like us, what you're doing, your new endeavor, is all about that. Being positive, not playing politics. Because any of that brings our vibration down, right? And we got to keep our vibration high. Because like you said, everything's energy. Everything is.
And if everybody is in a panic, and, you know, that to me is almost like a divisive agenda almost. And so you hear so many people saying, you know, I'm going off of social media. I'm going out for a month. I'm not doing it. I'm not watching the news. I'm not doing anything. I'm just gonna be at home, and I'm just gonna, you know, watch Netflix or something, some entertainment, whatever. Sit in a park, read a book, whatever they want to do, right? But they are not even going to take phone calls or anything, because I mean, what is the old saying? In order to conquer, you have to divide. Yeah. And if you pull somebody's rug out from under them, thread by thread, and they're going to be like, wait a minute, what am I standing on? Like, what foundation do I have below me? Where am I going? What is this? Why is this being pulled out from under me? Then you have all that stress. You have all that low vibrational fear that is just going to feed everybody else's fear. And then we got one big planet of chaotic fear. Yeah. And when we have any type of faith in what we stand on and our own principles, and I'm not just talking like about religions and all that. I mean, philosophically, ethically, our own principles, right? If we get that pulled out from under us, bit by bit, slowly over the course of time, and nothing else gets put back under us, we lose hope in who we are and hope in each other, and we're just like sitting ducks almost, in my opinion.
That's it.
Yeah, and it's a horrible, horrible situation that that's why the Psychic Cellar is the Psychic Cellar. It's going to be a community for, not exclusive or exclusivity, but inclusivity of all ideas, omnistic ideas, omnistic principles. Bring your questions, bring your whatever. Let's talk about it. Let's get it out there in the open, and let's put those pieces back underneath you so you get your footing again in this world, So, yeah, because like I said before we started, there's so much worry going on that I am seeing with a lot of my clientele, and especially with the moon. And yes, the moon does have a lot of influence over everything. It really, truly does. But once I found out that, the iron compounds that are on the moon are actually hematite, I was like, that's an interesting little parallel with protectiveness, isn't it? And it's like, and then you go down this other little line of thinking, and it's like, well, if it wasn't a part of the Earth, which is what they tried to teach in the 60s and 70s, due to a collision with an asteroid, right? Mm-hmm. And even before that, well, then it was put there. And who would put something there that scientifically is shown to kind of absorb negativity, like negative energy? Just like when somebody goes earthing, which is also scientifically shown to have health benefits. Who would put something that big that's always going around our planet, and now we as humans think that we have a right to take a flag and stake claim to it and blow the crap out of it? I'm like,
yeah. I mean, that's it. I mean, yeah, that's what I started by saying. The moon is like this perfect microcosm for who we are in our relationship with things. And energy is, energy's neutral. And but it gets processed. It gets processed through us, and we manifest through it. So you could look at the moon and go, what a big, beautiful, right? Tanya and I she was doing it a couple weeks ago. It was snowing and the moon was just giant. It was giant. So maybe it was longer than a few weeks ago. And she went outside, and there's a great movie with Tom Hanks called Joe versus the Volcano. And he's out, the ship things. He's out in the middle of nowhere, and he wakes up and he says, "Dear God, whose name I do not know, I forgot how big, because the moon is giant." And he says, "Thank you for my life." And that's like, you can look at the moon and you can look at that eclipse and you can say that, or you can say, oh, this is just another way that they're going to screw us. This is just another thing for doom. So we all have our choice. I mean, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but you said people go watch Netflix. Be careful what you watch.
Yeah, that is a rabbit hole.
Yeah, there was that movie, Leave the World Behind, which is about if the grid goes down. And suddenly, last week, AT&T went down.
If I can interrupt.
Yeah.
Hear about the frequency that is attached to the audio of that movie.
Yeah, there are layers. I know, there's whole layers of stuff. There's dates and times on the screens when you freeze frame them. This is what we call predictive programming.
Yeah.
The global elite, the satanic reptilian bloodlines, whatever you want to call them, it doesn't matter. Or just these ego, crazy with greed people. Take your pick. It could be as simple as that. They love to call their shots, man. They're like Babe Ruth in Yankee Stadium. They love to call their shot. And I think it's part of the ritual that the ritual has to be public and it has to be enacted. It has to be announced. There's a lot of attention on pop music now, and I think rightfully so, for these public rituals, right? These energy things. Because when people are moving their, Tanya's a Reiki master. And when you move your hands in a certain way in the air, you're conjuring, you're creating, you're changing the quality of energy and manifesting. So all this stuff is going on. So yeah, in that thing. But then last week AT&T goes down. Yesterday, Super Tuesday, Facebook, Instagram, and Threads go down, and we're all locked out of our passwords and our authentications. Hello. So so I think we just have to watch. And on my show, Into the Outer Realms, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to say to folks, should something go down, stop, breathe. Look at the patterns. Look at the context. Look at what the World Economic Forum is saying about you will own nothing and you will be happy. Like, it's all out there. You know, Rachel, there is a video, and it's been authenticated, of Bill Gates presenting to the CIA about a vaccination that they were working on that would take fundamentalism out of fundamentalist Muslims.
Oh, I know.
And some people say that the thing that people got during a certain thing that happened a couple years ago, we got to be careful what we say, because the algorithms and all, that severed people's spiritual threads, their silver cord. And they believe this. And I sort of have reason to believe that it's true. I lost all of my spirituality during that time and slowly have had to reconnect. It's come in a different form that I think is more mature, and it's more self-helpful, more self-efficacy. It's not like, oh, put it out there and let the universe say, no, I'm going to be more of an active participant, right? The good Lord helps those who help themselves. I mean, it's everywhere. But the idea that our spirituality, that our connection to source could be bioengineered out of us, or that people would even try to do that, is very scary.
Yeah.
So little wonder that people are going, oh, when that eclipse happens, bad things are going to happen. I hope that's not true. I hope it's not true.
I just hope that humanity on a whole can find their individual backbones.
Yeah, that's what it is.
And be like, okay, no, I am here. I am present. I am here in my container, in this moment, in this life. I am not alone. I am here for a higher reason, to experience something, or to bring something that I have within my energy to the proverbial table that is a human existence, right here, right now. No matter what is thrown at humanity.
Yeah.
And here a lot of people are afraid to use their backbone and to understand that their backbone is really only meant to hold them up.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But I try to help my clients find that inner strength, because that is going back to that like little piece of carpet or rug that's underneath everybody, or the foundation of the concrete blocks or the bricks getting pulled out one at a time and crumbling. It's not right. But so I can understand why a lot of heavy hitters are using what's going on with the almost like the mental conflict that humanity's going through right now to their advantage, to promote a very divisive agenda.
Yeah.
Very, very quickly. And it's overwhelming and almost running a lot of people over.
It is. Most people that I talk to are having a hard time from all walks of life, because I wear a lot of different hats, as you know. And I'll talk to my friends who write about and live very spiritual lives, and they're like, I just can't get up from the political punches. I can't. And I'm like, you got to understand, it's way bigger than Democrat, Republican. Like, don't even be in these lower vibrations. Like, you got to realize that from time immemorial, there's a group, Oxfam and people like that. So this isn't a conspiracy theory. Oxfam says that like 48% of all the world's wealth is controlled by like 4% of the people. Well, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And then the other side of that is what Kissinger said, power is the ultimate aphrodisiac.
Yeah.
So they're getting all hepped up on this. It's not that hard. It's not that hard to believe. And so, but I do believe that each one of us are responsible for how we react, and to keep that vibration as high as possible, because maybe if things do go under here, I believe that higher vibration is going to help us go someplace good, someplace safe, someplace better, right? And that sounds very biblical. It sounds very rapture.
It does. It's a little preachy, but it's okay.
That's the last thing, though, that I want to be, though. I don't want to be preachy, but for me,
but it's okay, because down to it, it's a very humane and very optimistic ideology that a lot of people need to understand. It doesn't conform to just one religion. It's just about being human.
Yeah.
It's just about being kind. It's just about having an understanding that we're all in it together, but yet we all have our own individuality and perhaps abilities that we're not even really aware of, that have brought us here to this point to bring to the table of life in this particular world right here, right now, that we're all living in.
Yeah.
And that is what, unfortunately, that 4% of the world do not want the 96% of the world to understand as their own strength.
No, nor should they, right? So being a writer, being a storyteller, I have to put myself in other people's position, which is good practice as humans, by the way, which I say in my new storytelling book that's coming out this month. Empathy is a good thing. It's good to empathize. And sometimes to empathize, to put yourself in the shoes of the enemy, sounds a little like a profiler going after a serial killer. But when you get into that mindset, you go, if I had all that power and control, who the heck am I to say? I'm not going to say that my light ego, right, is so strong that I could overcome. The fact is that I would not be one of that 4%, because you don't get there unless you leave certain things behind. Those people aren't intact. And I don't know why I'm quoting the Bible so much today, but easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than a rich man to enter the kingdom. And I don't believe that means that money is evil. Money is neutral. It's called currency, which is interesting.
Right.
It's energetic flow, unless you're the 4% who are hoarding it. Then it's a problem. Then it's no longer currency. Then it's dammed up and it's no longer flowing, and very few of us have any to do anything with other than keep the lights on, right? But I do think that keeping our energy high, we don't want to be those people. It gets icky. Yeah. You can only spend so much time in that headspace, and you start to feel like you need a shower. And when Tanya and I have encountered dark entities in our field research, or in our own home if we haven't watered ourselves correctly after, it's the same thing. You take a shower. You literally take a shower. You put some salt in a bath. You re-ionize, you rebalance, and that's what it's like playing around in those heads. It's icky because it's not normal. It's not don't believe that that's the normal. That's not what humanity was wired for. I really don't believe.
Not at all.
No. So
not at all. Well,
so look
Joey,
at the moon and smile.
Yeah, there you go. My Aunt Joyce, who passed away, God love her. She always told me, I was really down this one moment, like we all get. And she lived in Seattle, Washington, and she would call me up and say, "Are you looking at the moon?" And I'd be like, I am. And she said, good, because this one moment when I was really, really down, and I was visiting her out in Washington State, she said to me, Rachel, sometimes I feel a real heaviness on you, and like you take on the weight of the world. She said, I just want you to know that when you look at the moon in the sky, you're not the only one who's looking up at it. You're not alone. And she said, I'm going to be right there looking at it too.
And she still
And
is.
that, my friend, is the truth of it.
Yeah, and those
I mean,
are wise words. That's right.
we are not alone.
No, not at all.
No matter what, we're not alone.
No, there's plenty
All
of
right,
us doing
Joey.
the good work.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
thanks for being on here. And
Yeah.
do you have a website or anything?
Oh yeah, just to be quick, if anybody goes out to Google and searches Joey Madia, Joey Madia, I'm everywhere. and I always love to hear from people and hear their thoughts, and I'll be checking in the comments, after this post. And yeah. Well, thank you. All best to the Psychic Cellar and to you. This is a wonderful endeavor.
Well,
Thank
Joey,
you for asking me to be
on sometime.
Absolutely, anytime.
Right.
Yeah, there's plenty to talk about. I was going to say it to you privately, but let me say it publicly. I do a lot of these things on both sides of the mic, and you consistently bring out the best in me.
Oh, that's so nice.
So thank you. I appreciate it. We go to really interesting places, and you ask great questions, and so thank you so much. This is our third time together on different places.
Yeah, different platforms. Yeah.
And I should say, you mentioned your palmistry you did on Into the Outer Realms years ago. You did a live reading of my No Holds Barred.
And I kept saying, "Are you sure, Joey?" Saying, "Are you sure?"
And it was all helpful because I needed to. There were some health issues, and there were some mindset issues in my career that I needed to take care of, and I did. So I deeply appreciate that. So, folks,
no problem.
Ask for Rachel's services because she's the real deal. So, all right, thank you so much.
All right, so everybody, I'm going to leave Joey on here just because I'm still getting used to this platform again. But everybody, this is going to be on iHeartRadio, and the video is going to be on Spotify podcasts, and it's just going to pretty much be everywhere you can find a podcast. So thank you very much, Joey, and I look forward to having you on again. Thanks. And everybody, make sure to check out the website at the bottom of the screen there, the Psychic Cellar, to find out any of the events we have coming up. And just so I can show you real quick, we do actually have an event again that is coming up on April 7th, which is a Sunday, and that's from 12 to 5. And this is a little graphic with all of the different readers that are going to be involved. And we're going to have a couple vendors here as well. It's all curated, all handmade items of intention, as well as some ethically sourced crystals, etc. And if you have any questions, like if you ever want to just reach out and maybe be a participant, or maybe just how do you get here, how do you find us, etc., check out the psychiccellar.com, and please check out Joey, and you'll find him. I mean, he's got 3 pages here, folks. I am not exaggerating with his CV. Check out your books are on Amazon, right?
Yes, they are.
All your books. We didn't even talk about all your books. Oh my goodness!
Okay.
You have so many series of books. Oh my goodness! Well, we'll get there when he's on next time, everybody. And thank you. Take care, everybody, and remember you're loved. Bye bye.